Hey, Ashley team, how's it going? Happy Friday, everybody. A few things. One is just to follow up on the solar credits email we had this week to give folks a little background. Had a citizen email, which I apologize for not getting to sooner, on sort of the status of the projection of the solar credits versus what the actuality has been. I think this was a project, and I don't know, Steve, if you were here for that project implementation, but I want to say 2022, 2023, those are moving forward. Excellent question. It kind of fell off my radar earlier this year, so I'm re-engaging in it. I'm talking to I had some email conversations with the consultant who helped out in the project to begin with. Ashley, thank you. Initially, she had reached out to the vendors that provide these credits to try to get that information earlier this year, and they weren't terribly forthcoming with a ton of information. So now I'm going to talk to the consultant in this project and start to just dive a little deeper here, not just to get back to the citizen inquiry, but I think it's important for the city to have up-to-date information on how those projections are reaching their actuality. I know Ashley was just talking about they were seeing the credits on the police station bill for a bit, and now they're not seeing them, and she's been trying to figure out why they're not seeing them and hasn't been getting a response from that provider. So in addition to just getting an accounting of where those credits have stood over the last few years, ensuring that our processes are realizing the gains from those credits to the highest extent possible, and if there's some systemic changes we need to make to get those done, we'll do so there. I guess I'll pause, Steve, if you got.
Just to speak to that a little bit, it was already in the motion when I was elected. It was already rolling. It hadn't. There had been some agreements made, and the city had bought into the idea of buying these credits and getting it as a discount on their bill. And there was some rolling around. Gary Fortier was mixed up in it in the beginning for some purpose. He had an interest in it, I guess, and he was mixed up in it and could probably share some history. But there was this, when I come on board, there was this, I called it a myth, that we were going to get 26% savings on our bill, and I don't buy into any of that stuff because it's like a cell phone company. They come in and tell you they're going to save you money, and they don't know how much you're paying. So how the hell can you tell someone how much you're going to save when you don't know what you're paying? And in order to get that project off the ground, like all of them, they have to have a commitment, a big commitment, to buy the power. And so the city bought into that, hook, line, and sinker. And maybe it's turned out great. Maybe it hasn't. But I think learning the accountability of what the city got into and whether it's panning out or not, I'm certain that probably there's a little bit of a savings there, but I don't think it's 26%. And I also think that the maintenance of policing it probably exceeds the savings. But maybe I'm wrong, and I hope you prove me wrong.
Steve. That's why I love you. I bet you're damn right. Story of my life is just, just this exact example. It's like there was never a process to implementation tracking. Everybody had a lot of energy, enthusiasm to get the project launched, and then it's how do we take care of it? And I think over the long term, how much more staff are we going to need? What's the true cost of this? How much more hours are we going to put on people? Let's do that math before we say let's engage in this new activity. And then at some point in time, somebody holds the bag for doing the accounting. That usually is me, Sue, Sarah, the two people on this call. Yeah. I think of that with the Moore Center. I think of that, with some of these other kind of grants and these other pieces we do, which is kind of an Easter egg. That's, oh my gosh, I didn't even know this was in existence. And we need to track it. In
my opinion, anyone that walks in going to save you money bears watching.
And to your point too, Steve, I think I've been thinking about this a lot over the last couple of weeks. People keep bringing forward new projects, new pieces. There's a composting activity to maybe centralize all the composting and have a new I'm kind of more in the line of, we got to get rid of that $500,000 cost overrun on Casella, that the increase in just general or trash collection before we do new programs. But that, composting, I could see why people would want to have like a unified composting system. To me, that's more in like a bigger city when you don't have a lot of land to do your own composting. And what's the staff commitment going to have to be to do that composting program? How do we have a system? And I think Amazon has this. When anybody has a new idea what they want to do, they have this like massive form that you have to fill out, like how many hours, if you really want to get this to fruition, what's the business case, what's the this, not just, hey, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this.
They also have a system of trimming unperforming people. Amazon.
They do, yeah. I have a friend who works there, and yeah, they have a pretty robust performance review system.
Yep.
But I could critique that system too, and we've, as you know, Steve, we've implemented a performance review process for the first time citywide. I think Amazon's is probably a little too cutthroat for my taste.
I didn't say I liked it. I said they had one.
But we do have I don't like to consider it a trimming people. I like to consider it hey, here's what the alignment is on what the metrics are for success and accountability, so that's exciting as well this time around from solar credits. So we'll get some accounting there. On the other fun things that are expensive, not fun, but we had an issue with Liberty Street and some water pressure on a fire maybe about a month ago now. And so I've been looking into it. Obviously, we have older, aging infrastructure. Initially, there was some thought that it could have been like a pump turning on and off, and that's what kind of caused a temporary pressure issue. But it's the water department's been out there. I think the fire department has as well to kind of continue to monitor the pressure. And it's not stabilizing necessarily up there to the degrees that we'd want it. So they've looked at what's called ice pugging or pigging? Ice pigging, which is
I
essentially...
can't wait to hear what ice picking is.
Yeah, me too. You're going to love this one, Steve.
Yeah, you are.
Although sometimes I'm shocked with you, Steve. Like something I was like, this is going to be expensive and it's wild, but...
Please do explain ice pigging.
It's basically you shoot... I could be wrong on this, but from what I've heard, it's like you shoot a ton of dry ice. In this case, like
Regular ice.
Oh, it's regular ice?
Regular ice.
Regular ice. In this case, it's like $45,000 worth of ice into the lines to clear everything out, and then so it's essentially like sending rocks through the system, but it's a water system, so you wouldn't want to fill it with rocks, and then it can kind of melt, clear the lines, get the pressure back. But to me, I want to get the pressure back on that fire hydrant, to obviously service fire needs, $45,000 in ice. If it was going to guarantee success on that, I could be there, but so we're also now going to look into some cameras. Can we send the cameras down there to do a little bit more diagnosis space on our water lines? We have 6 maybe fire hydrants that need replacing, so that's already an expense for the water department that they're moving forward on. So we've put a September 1st deadline to have those hydrants replaced. Some of them are just failing due to age. Some of them, like the one on Main Street, were hit by trucks, so trying to get a little better there. But I'm kind of in a no category on the ice pigging right now, Steve. But I also want to get the water pressure back up in that area. So,
This fire hydrant on Liberty Street, it came to light with a need, obviously, correct?
Yep.
Is there any testing that can be done on other fire hydrants before we have a need that we discover that we have a problem with? That would be my first question. Is this a problem with just that hydrant or that whole area, or what is that? That would be number one that I would like to know. Obviously, you have some that aren't working already. If you know they're not working, then I would think you could have a work plan around it. But if you don't know they're not working, then there's a challenge to be had in time of need. Liberty Street isn't a long ways from another one, correct?
Yeah, and Liberty Street's interesting too because obviously there are areas of Ellsworth that are notorious for bad pressure because of the water comes from Branch Lake. And, there's a variety of gravity issues. We have water tanks in certain areas to help, but that's mostly in like the High Street corridor, I think, is kind of the upper Myrick Street kind of area. There's been talk about, maybe a water tower there in the future to help with, but this one isn't in that category, so, it is somewhat localized into why in an area that should be receiving good pressure based on natural dynamics doesn't. To your other point, Steve, there is a testing program for all the fire hydrants that the water department and fire department is currently engaged in. So, I think they started that last summer. It's required. They should be finished by the end of this summer. So I can get you an update there. There's also like a separate piece of this too, where I think they have like kind of live monitoring on pressure from the water departments in certain areas. You can actually see the pressure of the system.
I certainly don't know what I'm talking about here, but there's a lot of places that fire departments go that have no fire hydrants. And I wonder if that should be the approach, that tell yourself you don't have a fire hydrant on Liberty Street, and go like you're going to a remote area with no no hydrants. I just wonder if there should be a mentality change in the interim. That, because there's a lot of fires that are fought without fire hydrants. It may not be as easy, and I'm not saying don't fix them by any means, but there could be a mentality switch in the interim, if you have that problem, to plan on fighting fires without fire hydrants.
Yeah, Sarah and I have been doing lunches with each of the fire department crews and getting a lot more of a deep dive into some of their concerns. I'd say they really, especially in this urban core, they really want those fire hydrants. It's kind of one of the selling points with Ellsworth and the city too.
I'm all for the fire hydrants and I'm all for fixing them, but there's got to be an immediate plan to operate without them if they're not working.
And in this city, the majority of the city is not on that now. In terms of landmass wise, the population centers are the majority is probably on the water system, and plus the new bond we talked about, Tanker 4, as being kind of an immediate replacement piece. So maybe having Tanker 4 while it's still in somewhat service capable, that it's on call, and then we can get a new tanker in here too. And to your point, Steve, that would help. At least almost double our capacity there. But again, now I'm speaking out of turn on.
Well, we got to have an immediate plan. If you've got a problem, you've got to have an immediate plan with mindsets and then fix the problem.
And we're not going to be able to upgrade all of our water sewer infrastructure to modern standards within the next 2 years without a $100 million bond. We still have clay pipes and all kinds of things. So how do we get around that, I think, is what I'm hearing from you.
Well, and that's just a question. I don't know what I'm talking about here, but I do know that there's got to be a mindset change. If you've got fire hydrants that aren't working, if you've got to have a fire department that's thinking that they're not working, like the rest of the city, until you find a solution to the problem. Because of this problem, did this fire go out of control that could have been controlled differently? Did they work around it in an emergency need?
Yeah, I think, I can't remember, there was a news article on this too, about, they were able to bring some of the resources to bear on the fire. And, I think one of the persons who was across the street was like this, this thing came up in the middle of the night, and I think it was a rag fire. And that by the time anybody got there, a lot had already happened. But that being said, and for our fire department too, it's not just about putting out the fire, but for their own life and safety. So having that pressure and knowing that it's there, if their personnel are in the building, could be can you get out? And then we can get Tanker 4 that's a little bit unreliable, and these other pieces. To me, there's like they're, especially talking to the teams, I've been getting a lot better of a perspective on, hey, that might seem like a small thing on a water pressure and this and that. And sure, it's aging infrastructure everywhere, but when it's your life on the line and you're in there and you want to clip into a hydrant and know that you're going to have a good amount of water pressure, like that's the whole ball game.
But if we don't have it today, they need to have a mindset that they don't have it and then improve it. This black ice trick, or whatever you're talking about.
Ice pigging.
Pig ice, or whatever you're calling about. I would just, and I don't know, maybe it's the best thing since sliced bread, but if you're going to pressurize that line and clean that line, how many leaks are you going to?
Yeah.
How many leaks are you going to find when you start pig icing an old infrastructure. That would be just a question.
Yep. So we'll continue to work with our water department too on these pieces, and
And thank you for explaining the word pig ice.
I got to
Ice pigging.
ice pigging.
Oh, ice pigging, sorry. Ice pigging.
Jeez. It's a very technical term. But one of the etymology of that word is quite interesting. So that's a piece. Nate, you want to give an update on the bond year discussion from yesterday? I'm fine with if you've changed it to 7. I was thinking that we'd be at 10, looking at our previous bond cycles. They've all been 10 or 20s. I think Nate's already moved from 20 to 7. In my opinion, I know we have a little bit of a disagreement on this, Steve, is it's the useful life of the project and like our debt service trajectory and needs, and both those things together so that we're not having huge spikes and we're kind of catching up for a lot of depreciation in current years that hasn't been addressed in multiple years. That being said, in the near term, I also don't like it that I have to look at this debt schedule and account for previous city managers, no offense, Michelle, that, we're paying debt service on for long periods of time that, as I told Nate and Ashley, I hope to be here a long time, but in 10 years, that city manager will thank me that or 15 years that I didn't put a 20-year bond on their watch that they have to account for projects that are long since gone. So I do want to be fiscally mindful of, it's not just us trying to keep our current year debt or next year's debt cycle. That's what I'm always thinking. We got to 2.9% this year. I want to keep a reasonable level of tax increases that are pegged to inflation moving forward. And if we spike with too much debt service on certain years, as opposed to not next year, but the year after that, we have a pretty substantial fall off in the debt service. I can kind of keep that tax levy even with our debt projects and our capital projects. But we have so much in this next bond. I feel like, this capital improvement plan that's going to come forward for longer term holistic bond strategies. I'm much more amenable to your piece, Steve, on, after looking at it. Yes, useful life of a road, talking with Sarah, is around 7 years for these pieces. Yes, in the city of Ellsworth, the actual life of a road pavement is more like 20 years before we actually get to redoing it. So there is a piece of useful life, and then to how long do we actually wait on it. You look at, a lot of our roads, they haven't been touched in 30 years. They haven't been touched in an extraordinarily long time. So there is an aspect of if we just try to do these capital projects and bond for them on a much smaller time horizon to catch up for so much depreciation on 10 years plus on things going beyond their useful life, we will put too much initial tax burden on taxpayers now, making up for the past. But in the same token, if we go out too far, we're going to basically be leveraging future citizens for projects that are happening now. So I do want to balance both those things, but I'm fine moving forward on the 7-year piece, and we'll look towards next budget cycle. We're already starting to look at it to how we can cover that new that new debt service schedule. That's probably going to take up a significant portion, but at least it's over 7 years and not over 1. So yeah, that's kind of what, Nate, I don't know if you want to have anything more to add on that piece.
No, I like you always say, hate to agree with Steve, but I don't want to push anything out that's going to be, sorry, I had to throw that in there, but I don't want to push anything out for the city that, honestly, the length doesn't justify it. So after last week's discussion, I feel like 7 years is probably a reasonable, happy medium, I think Steve said, as far as the projects that are on there. So that's what we went with.
Well, I'm glad to hear that the 7-year mark is the target. There's a lot of debt that's happened. We can't unscramble the egg. There's a lot of debt that we're paying for where the assets wore out. And it doesn't hurt to not create any more of that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, it's going to be difficult. That's part of this capital improvement plan. It's going to be a wildly difficult prioritization exercise on.
And that's fine, because there's no sense in financing things that have been wore out longer than their lifespan. And it's a realization that if you're financing a budget, which sounds like what's been going on, is that, oh, we'll structure the length of the bond based on our budgetary abilities. So you wind up paying for things long after they're wore out. And this way, yes, it's tough, but you can't go to the bank and finance a car for 15 years. It's going to last 5. And that's what's happened in Ellsworth. And probably other towns too, for that matter. I just have seen it in Ellsworth. And so correcting that going forward, time will fix it all.
Yeah, this is where I think you and I disagree, but a bit, which I think we've talked a bit about. I think there's 2 components to that. One is the depreciation, is what you're talking about, those specific things. And from an individualized budget, that makes a ton of sense. At scale, in terms of thinking about all of your capital assets and your debt service on those capital assets, you get into a bit of a different category, especially because previous non-financing, kind of, kicking the can down the road, as you've said, you sort of basically have to catch up in the near term on those, so you're ending the depreciation. But one of the pieces that gets difficult about that is it's kind of twofold. One is like we have a growth profile in the city that's generating new tax revenue. We want to stay within that growth profile over the long term if we can define it, categorize it, because that's our new revenues. That means we don't have to tax additional people because there's going to be inflation, there's going to be cost services. So to dump a ton of new debt service in a condensed period of time to make up for the fact that, our leasing on cars is a good example. Like in the highway department, we just purchase cars outright, maybe purchase this, drive them until they're totally rusted, they're not even inspectable, and then all of a sudden in a random year, you have all these cars that are inspectable, and I have that information. The floorboards are rusted out, we can't move forward. A previous decision, that was a decision to kind of go in that direction, and then it creates this unexpected capital depreciation, just you got to pop it onto 1 year, or do you spread it out over more? So how do you think of your capital assets at a super broad level, right? You say, so if you actually get big enough, which I hope with Sarah's capital improvement plan, as we look at the full breadth of the capital projects, then I think, and I would like to get bond counsel here more. I'd like to get maybe the Maine Municipal Bond Bank here to talk to you all, to really not just look at, hey, here's this project base, this car, this truck, how long do we bond for this specific thing, and be like, here's all your depreciation, here's all your capital projects, here's all your pieces, here's your current debt service, here's the next 5 to 10 years of potential growth in your tax revenue, and here is what is a reasonable way to move forward on your bonding. At different scales, I've done multi-billion-dollar bond issuances for the fact that the state of Massachusetts had a terrible reserve ratio in their unemployment system that was literally designed to go bankrupt anytime there was a recession, and then you had to make a huge borrow from the federal government. And there's some decisions then when basically for bonding at that scale was like a less than 2% interest rate, and the governor was like, geez, if you can get less than 2% interest, why aren't we capitalizing this full, why don't we go to $4 billion bond? Now that's, to their point in that discussion too, it's, well, because you're leveraging future employers to pay for, if it's a 30-year bond for $4 or $5 billion, you're going to be paying that back forever. And the employers in 10 years shouldn't be paying for what the employers 10 years ago did not pay for. But it's a much more like broad, complicated financial discussion over time as opposed to what this individual project needs to be bonded for its useful life. That's kind of where I fall, but.
Got it.
That's it for me. Well, I'll let Nate and Ashley go.
You got anything?
The audit, so I know Nate sent it out to council. I don't know if that's what you're going to talk about, Nate. I have a lot of thoughts there. We're going to post it on the website soon, so we can share it with the public as well. I know, Steve, to your point, we're going to bring the auditor in, I think, early September.
September 4th at a finance committee meeting, yes.
We'll also bring that to the September agenda for discussion as well.
To clarify that, a presentation from HSR, or whatever they are.
RHR Smooth.
At the Finance Committee, I would prefer that come to the council as well, so the whole council can see. I think we need to have that presentation twice.
Okay.
once the finance committee, or once, I don't care what you do, but it needs to come to full council. I want everyone to see that. If you want to, I would prefer finance first and then council, but it was informative. The 1 year and 4 that I've been here that it was presented, it was good. It allowed a lot of questions.
You know, I'm kind of inclined to go just full council, just because of this. I would hate for this to be you and me. And,
Whatever, I'm fine, as long as the full council sees it. I'm hearing Michelle in the background saying that needs to come to finance first, but.
Okay.
Whatever, as long as the full council sees it, if I had a choice, I would rather see a full council see it than just the finance committee. In a perfect world, you'd have both.
I mean, should we just let the whole council know that they're gonna be here on September 4th, to present, and that way it's open for the whole council?
You can if you'd like, but I'd like to have it on a regular council meeting so that it
Well,
garners the
and that's
attention.
fine, we can do that.
let's do both, Steve. Let's see if, Ron can zoom in too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
do both.
Let's do both.
Good idea. Yeah.
I like that. And if it's just me and Steve for round one, we'll lay our questions out there and get some things clarified, and then we'll have another round. I mean, honestly,
Yeah, whatever.
so we'll have two discussions on that.
Why are we not going to have a full, it sounds, to listen to you talk, it sounds like usually there's more people than us. This isn't a norm.
That's true. I'm just saying for summertime. I'm wondering.
okay.
You know,
well.
the workshop too.
Yep.
3 weeks ago just had you, me, Michelle. I feel
Whatever.
like there's the
Whatever.
finance committee meetings.
If
are
they
a little-
don't want to come, I understand. There's all kinds of commitments. Everyone has a busy life, but that doesn't mean we all shut the rest of us out.
Yeah, and to your great credit, Steve, you're the most punctual and attendance.
And aggravating.
Yeah, at the. I don't know about this. Okay. Oh,
Hey, say it like it is.
at the
Okay.
at the Kennedy School, we had these like cameras like these. They would monitor attendance of all the students. So I was like, that would be interesting to get the little attendance monitoring. But I don't have to do that with you, Steve. I think you've got the gold star for attendance and city councilors probably over the last 4 years. So we'll put that forward. I think this is, when I say the best audit, I'd say the last 3 audits, we caught up on 3 years audits last cycle. That was one of the wild things upon arrival was just, wait, we're how many years behind on our audits? Talk to the state auditor directly, like what's the consequence for, like how could this happen? And also to learn that we aren't unique in the state of Maine on these auditing pieces. And it really is the school funding and a federal component that actually has any kind of consequence for the school's audit. From the city side, there's not really a mechanism for the state beyond just bad fiscal accounting to maintain compliance. That does it. Just because there's no state, huge penalties, we got to be up to date. And reading the 2024, when I say the best one, this is like this. When I read that, this is exactly what I walked into on April 1st and started asking questions about like what our liabilities are and what's the current cash position and what's these other things, these kind of pieces that you would expect to be like, here's this list of managers, here's this report, looking at the budget process where people would come in with the department heads with some sheets of paper on 15 different formats, and counselors would be putting their own Excel sheets into their budget binders, and that was considered like the budget process. On a $50 million budget, it was just pretty remarkable. And I know we've come a long way since then, and in some ways this is like Back to the Future on looking on.
So, to speak to that a little bit,
Are those our guys? I gotta get a camera of this.
Sue is not having it.
Hey, guys! Hello? Hello, up here. You almost done with that? We're having a meeting. Thank you. We're almost done this meeting. Can you wait just a minute?
oh my
Oh, I
goodness.
know, but we're just about done. Thank you.
Oh my goodness.
Sue gets a gold star for that.
Sue gets double gold
You
star.
grabbed the bull by the horn, girl.
happy with me.
So, if I could weigh in a little bit on the audit, I got a chance to, and I've said this in the past, and I'd like to reiterate this. An auditor's job is to find problems. And certainly, the auditors have found problems. And there's a long list of bad habits that have been repeated in the finance department. Nobody knew they were creating bad habits. It was just the way it was done. And I don't put too much weight in what happened yesterday. We just need to take this audit and implement the changes and the thought patterns and move forward. It's that simple.
I totally agree. When I say the best audit, that's like the other three, they were kind of general, and these ones had specific corrective action plans. Like, yep, that's a good piece, that's a good piece, that needs to be 100% solved. And it was like, when we do X's, we will know like that we are back to where we need to be as a city. And, it's wild to think about. In 2015, I was just looking at articles and kind of researching this, like, they won national awards for the auditing procedures and financing policies, and the whole finance team, I saw a big picture in the paper on them for all the pieces that they did. They were really locked in 2015. So how do we get back there? But then also institutionalize the change so it's, so it lasts beyond Nate, Ashley, myself, this team here. Sure, we're really proud. You even see yourself, Steve. Love to keep you around for a long time, but that it's not just new counselors, staff that really prioritize this, but it's easy to do. Not, it's never going to be fully easy, but we have a system that, because out of all the things in Ellsworth that you need to have perfect going forward, this is the anchor. This is the heart of everything else. So again, then getting that bond rating back up and making it cheaper for us to issue debt potentially at some future period of time, it all kind of revolves around that. I'd also note, to that point on kind of the forward-thinking piece, we've got this team, Nate, Ashley, I think there was culturally kind of a sense when I arrived in the finance department of just like, I hate to say it, but like despair of like how we're going to dig out of this. And I don't see that at all there anymore. Even tough findings like this, like we have a team's like, we want to do better here. How do we get better here? We've just had Sue Lassard, so one of the foremost experts in municipal budgeting, come in to kind of bring that institutional expertise. She's starting to work with Nate and Ashley, but then it's also not just in the finance department. Like the whole city needs to really acknowledge the importance of these processes, and Sue's also reaching out to department heads now and going through some interviews with them on like how they handle their policies and procedures on their departments. I think there's a procurement aspect to this too over time, Steve, that's might be related as well on how we like consider all of our city services going into budget processes to make sure that we're getting the best deal for the city of Ellsworth. So that's it for me.
Yeah, and ice picky or whatever you call it, I'll just piggyback off of that, audit piece. The goal is to sit down with the team. I have a meeting scheduled with them on Tuesday, the finance team. Our goal is to address these, I don't want to say issues, but the areas that need the most concern and we need to fix. So that's our goal, is to get better every year and to fix, like Steve said, the auditor's job is to find the areas that we need work. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to put our feet to the ground and start working. Excited because I feel like we're definitely making a lot of progress. I feel like the team is the best team. Obviously since I've been here, but I couldn't ask for a better team. Ashley, Deb, Leah, incredible, and I know that they're going to make the next audit even better, so I'm excited for that. So looking forward to that, and also to mention Sue Lassard, like I said, working with her is going to be great. All the departments. She is coming in. I just want to give a brief update based on talking with Sarah. She's coming in next Thursday to the finance committee meeting to just discuss her conversations with finance department as well as other department heads. So I just want to let everyone know that she will be in next Thursday for the finance committee meeting.
If I could weigh in on one more subject, when I got here, there was a brand new guy, Josh, that had come on board, and then there's been several since. And when Josh departed, I had pushed for a CPA to come in and take over the finance department on a 6-month contract to get us lined up for audit-minded people. And I didn't get support for that. And the reason I bring that up is simply this, that a CPA knows what the auditors are looking for and knows how to fine-tune that. When you walk into the place that hasn't been an auditor themselves for several years, you don't know. And so you walk into a hornet's nest like you folks have walked into, and it's almost like you're holding the bag, when in fact, you're just improving the process that needed huge improvements. And I think it's worthy of saying that if Charlie, don't tell anyone I agreed with you, but if you set up a system by a former auditor that knows what makes audits smooth and what they're looking for, and then you institutionalize that, I think you don't have these surprise audits like you have. And so you folks have walked into this mess and you're improving it every day, but nobody gave you enough tools in your toolbox to fix it. And I think that it's getting better all the time, and it's the best it's been since I've been here in 4 years. Absolute wonderful. But nobody gave you a full toolbox to work with, and you're working with part of a toolbox. And so don't shoulder this all on yourselves. Shoulder this on the process, and that an audit's an audit. We just need to improve it. That's all.
Yeah.
Gosh, this is a terrible finance committee meeting. Or if Steve's agreeing with me, I have to agree back with Steve.
Can we cut the cameras? Because I don't want anyone to know this, okay?
No, it is a systems level thing. Sometimes we can personalize problems to personalities and finance. It's like, no, it's like the city was growing rapidly, exponentially. The processes got ahead of them. Nobody took a beat to be like, hey, like we got to fix this system. It's, you know, it's not Nate or Ashley's. It's not even Josh, the other previous person. It's just the fact that councils, the whole system wasn't working. And I wouldn't be opposed to that. You know, I'd say Sue Lassard is in some ways as good as an auditor in some of these pieces. But, you know, she's on a temporary contract to do specific defined policies and procedures. Like, and we have a whole review of like her 3-step process to getting us here. But I definitely wouldn't be opposed to maybe a second step to that is, you know, engaging an auditor to help Nate and Ashley and our team, like, you know, get ahead of the next one. It's like auditing. And in fact, like we are, even though you didn't, that idea didn't sway, we did that. I mean, we paid, I think, $250,000 to RHR Smith to not just do our audit, but they were doing our accounting for a year and some change, which I think in the private sector is actually illegal. In the public sector, it's, I'm told, is not. But essentially, Steve, we did that, but we didn't use like a separate auditing firm to go in, which probably would have been, so like we did pay that money over a longer, I think it was like an almost 2-year period, a year and a half. So I wouldn't, now the budgeting, obviously, we'd have to, how do you budget for that? We're off budget cycle. We are potentially, we're going to be encumbering, I think, next council meeting, we're going to bring forward some encumbrances. So maybe where there's overages in some areas, we could consider a budget reallocation for FY26 and add additional funds to put it out in the street for an auditor.
Well, at an interim basis, you know, it doesn't have to be I wanted a 6-month
Yeah.
stay of somebody to come in and brush things up. The problem with numbers is everybody looks at them from a different point on the compass. Everyone dissects them differently.
Yeah, and I could see, yeah, maybe it's, we budgeted for the Sue piece to do her kind of policies, procedures, review of all those things, but maybe there's a second 6-month engagement with an audit, or with an auditing
Maybe it's
firm.
not 6 now, maybe it's 3, I don't know. But it was a mess way back when, and I just thought it was a time to do it. And maybe now it's not needed. I'm just saying that, you know, these people have got the burden of several years of movement without thought.
Yeah, good insights, and we'll keep, I think in some ways this finance committee, like our highest and best purpose is probably keeping on the audit findings, how far we're making progress, so that, you know, by the end of your second term and close to the end of my first term, that we can shake hands and say, like, for the time being, this is an incredible process, and we know exactly what our cash position is and what our, our outstanding liabilities and all the things that we didn't know when I arrived in April of last year. So, and I think we're on a path towards getting there.
Yeah, it's getting better every day. I have one question off topic, if you will. There's $100,000, $103,000 going to Rudman and Winchell in this warrant. And there's 2 invoices here that aren't supported, and there must be, it's something to do with Branch Pond Road, maybe Ellsworth Loan or else. One's 92,000, one's 92,500, and one's $9,285.72.
That's probably the purchase of something that they get, the Haynes property. So that's purchased from, basically they escrow it through legal to purchase the
Okay.
Haynes property.
Okay, so that's what that's for.
Right.
Okay, thank
The
you.
9,000 is the closing cost, and the 92,000 is the purchase of the property.
Okay.
Which will get back the 92,000 via a grant reimbursement.
We hope.
No, we are. We're applying, we're putting the reimbursement in, we're getting it.
So even
We're
though,
working with Brittany.
even though this is a $103,000 invoice going to Rudman and Winchell, the largest portion of that is the purchase of a piece of property which has value. So it's not a real expense. Thank you.
Yeah, this came to me too when we had, when I was reviewing a warrant on Acadia Law Group. I saw a $30,000 fee and I was like, what in the world is going on here? Like, this is suspicious. It's a flat number. Like, every other bill I've had for them has A, been much smaller, and B, and then I realized, oh, this was for the purchase of the Adams parcel, which we discussed in council. Like, this is not just a flat $30,000 send-off, so.
That one didn't throw too much at me because it wasn't something that's done every day, but Rudman and Winchell is an everyday thing around here, and when I saw that, I'm like, all right, no invoice to support it.
Right.
I don't mean to cut anybody short, but Jared, you've been sitting here patiently for 45 minutes listening to us rattle. Have you got something to say?
Agree, Steve. Listening to us.
Morning, Jared, resident. I actually do have just a quick question. With the 7-year bond, we talked about last week about the truck being purchased through that bond for the public works, the dump truck. And there was discussion back and forth on if that truck was gonna be fully equipped with the plow and all the accessories. And some were yes and some weren't sure. And I'm just curious if we had an answer on if that truck is coming fully equipped or if we're gonna have to use money out of the capital fund after we get the truck through the bond.
I think it's fully equipped. Was that I think we discussed that at the Public Works meeting, fully equipped, yep.
Okay,
Yep.
well, thank you. You guys have a great weekend.
Thank you, Jared. Thank you.
Are they good to start back up? The guys outside?
Yes.
Sue wanted me to make sure I.
No, I think she needs to go give him permission. They're not gonna act without her.
wants to be the nice one to be able to go.
Please, guys, sorry.